Greetings, dear friends, fellow programmers, and those aspiring to be. Today, we will be talking about a game changer in the world of dependency injection service registration. I'm talking about conditional registration of services, but I know if you are following this channel very thoroughly, you will know that we already spoke about this topic, but this time I'm talking about a pre-built-in functionality in ASP.NET Core that is going to allow you to do something a bit different from what we covered in that previous video. So if you would like to master it and be able to benefit from it, stay tuned and enjoy the video. Conditional registration of services can be a pain point in our applications, because sometimes those conditions and the entire logic for introducing and using different logic for certain services in different scenarios can be very complex indeed. And in those cases, TryAdd method provided by ASP.NET Core is going to allow us to have a lot easier time doing this, because it offers something very unique and very beneficial, if I may say so, to us as developers. Again, as usual, you know it's time for me to give you some kind of imaginary scenario, and you're right again, because that's exactly what I have in store for you. And today, we're again going to be a pizza shop. This time, I want you to imagine the following scenario. You have your regular menu where you have listings of different pizzas. And those pizzas are the regular ones. And also, in the final parts of the day, you have collected quite a bit of ingredients which are basically left after the entire day of making regular pizzas. And you do not want to waste those ingredients, so you want to offer your customers a way for them to choose different ingredients that are going to be put on some custom pizzas. Well, TryAdd functionality is going to allow us to do exactly that with our services. It allows us to conditionally add service implementations without overriding the existing service implementations. Now, I know this might sound a bit weird or abstract, so we're going to jump to our Visual Studio, where I'll do my best to try to explain how it works in a real-life scenario. But before we do that, we still did not cover the actual explanation and definition of TryAdd method, so I will do my best to explain it before we jump to Visual Studio. So, TryAdd is provided by a library called Microsoft.Extensions.DependencyInjection. Inside of that package, you will be able to get TryAdd method, which we just explained. And this method allows us to define a specific implementation for certain services under given conditions, but also to have a possibility to have a default implementation which is going to be switched up by this custom implementation only if something goes wrong with this default implementation. So it's something like a backup plan for our services. We have the default implementation, and if no service was successfully registered for a given interface, then and only then the service implementation defined with TryAdd method is going to be used. Now finally, let's see it in action with some fun examples. And welcome to Visual Studio. Finally, we made it to this part. So right here, I have prepared for you a simple email sending service. First up, we have an interface which contains just send email method, which expects 3 standard parameters: to email address, subject, and body. And also, we have 2 different sets of implementations for this email sending service. The first one is the default email sender, which is just going to basically log a message stating to us that we are using a default email sender. And also we have the custom email sender, which again prints to the console that we are using a custom email sender. So now what I want to do is jump to our program CS file and show you how you can use TryAdd method to your benefit. First things first, as you can see here, we have registered our default email service with transient lifetime, and basically this is going to be the default behavior. We also have our if statement checking whether the key in our configuration for this concrete variable, so this one is set to true, and if it is, then we are going to register our custom email sending service. In our case, as you can see, we have true set in our configuration, so if everything works as expected, we should register this service right here, and let's see what happens. So I will add a breakpoint here and run our application to show you exactly what is going to happen. Here we are. We have successfully registered our email sending service and we reached our if statement. So when we read our configuration file, we will see that it is true. We're ending up in this line right here and registering our custom email sending service. So you saw that we added it. But now I have a question for you. What do you think is going to be printed when we execute this by the end? Do you think it's going to be a default or the custom message? Let's see. In our browser, we can just see email sent message, so nothing meaningful for us. But when I open our console, because that's where we were logging our messages, we can see that we were sending by default email service. So not the custom one, even though we have registered it, we saw that we did register it, even though that was successfully executed, we used the default one. That is because, if you remember the initial discussion about TryAdd method, it uses the implementation that we provided only if there is no previous definition provided. So if I were to restrict this from executing, so we no longer have the default implementation, and I run this code, well, this time we can see that we indeed were using our custom email sending service. That is because we did not register our default one, so when TryAdd reached this point, it saw that we do not have any implementations registered for this service, so it just really this time added this implementation. So when you think about it, this is great functionality that can provide us with a lot of flexibility and in many situations allow us to build way more dynamic applications. So just be smart and think about proper ways to include this in your project. So in conclusion, TryAdd method allows us to register implementation for services if previously we had not registered any implementations successfully. So that is like having a backup plan or utilizing different implementations in different scenarios in our code. And we can do it dynamically, so it's really executing at the runtime of our application, allowing us to be way more adaptable and flexible with our applications. At this point, I would like to check with you whether you have learned something new and beneficial in your eyes. And if you did, as usual, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel, but also remind you that it will be very beneficial if you spend some time playing around with this newly acquired knowledge and applying it in action through your own fingers. And yeah, if you would like to expand your knowledge about dependency injection and .NET in general, I would like to invite you to browse through the library of this channel. You will definitely find something interesting and grow as a developer. So until the next video, thank you for watching and have an amazing day. Happy coding!